Hey guys, this is Rashida Alliong. Thank you for tuning into my new makeup video. You can follow me on Instagram at Playing in My Palettes. Also, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and share button if you feel so inclined. Let's get into it. Hey, what's up? This is your girl Rashida, and today we are getting into one of my most highly requested videos. I've been so busy, I've been moving, life, whatever, but that's excuses. And today, what are we talking about? We're talking about brows, how to snatch those brows, how to get those brows popping. Yes, we're getting into it today. So I'm going to talk about what brushes you need, what products you need, and my techniques to having the best brows ever, period. Let's go. So let's get into the brushes. To get this brow look, you're only going to need 4 brushes. You're going to need an angle brush, a spoolie, a buffer brush, and a flat liner definer brush. The brushes are pretty inexpensive. The angle brush that I'm going to be using today is from Beauty Bakery. This is one of the best. Yours doesn't have to be from Beauty Bakery. It can be e.l.f., NYX, whatever. You can pick a brush, but this just happens to be my favorite. So this is the angle brush. Also, we're going to be using a buffer brush. This one is by Morphe. It's the M173 brush. I use 2 of these, and I'll show you why a little later. Also, here's the flat liner definer brush. It's a straight edge brush, and it really comes in handy, guys. So you definitely want to get this. And this is also Morphe. It's the M432 brush. And last but not least, the good old spoolie. So the spoolie, you can use any spoolie. This one actually came from e.l.f. and it has the angle brush on the other end. Before I got the Beauty Bakery brush, this was the one that I used a lot. And you can tell it's paint chipping off, everything. This was the old trusty, okay? It got the job done. It's just that I found one that I like better, and that's what I'm using. So let's get into these products. So guys, let's get into the products that you need for this look. Some people think that you need a lot of products to achieve the eyebrow, the perfect eyebrow, but you don't. So let's talk about it. I like to use an eyebrow pomade. It's like a cream base pomade that you put on your brows to give it a fuller look, make it look more defined. You can also use a pencil. One of my favorites in pomades is the Anastasia Beverly Hills, and I use the color Ebony. Sometimes I see women use black to do their eyebrows, and while it can be done, if you're looking for like a more dramatic effect, for an everyday look, I wouldn't suggest it. You want to get a color that is close to the color of your brow. I mean, it can be done, and it can be done masterfully, if you want to use black. But if you're looking for an everyday look, go with the color that is your brow color. To give the brow the defined look, I use 2 concealers. On the top, I use a concealer that is closer to my complexion. And on the bottom, I use a concealer that is, lighter to just make it look really defined, make it look really clean. And, on the top, because you want it to look as natural as possible. So my favorite concealer to use, I use a lot of concealers, but my favorite concealer to use for my eyebrow look is the LA Girl Pro Concealer. They're really inexpensive. You can get it for about $3 or $4 at your local beauty supply store. The 2 that I like to use for my complexion is Toffee. And that's the color that I put under my brow. And over my brow, I use Beautiful Bronze. That is the closest to my complexion. It really works for me. You have to figure out what works for your complexion. If you are somebody who is not used to makeup and you need a little help, you can go to, like an Ulta, a Sephora, and, kind of get an idea of what color works for your complexion, because the last thing that you want to do is get the wrong concealer, because it won't have the effect that you're trying to get. You know, it won't look the way that you would like for it to look, and we want to be snatched, period. So yeah, definitely get matched up, find out what your complexion is, you know, the shade for your complexion, I'm sorry. The shade for your complexion, and then buy accordingly. Last but certainly not least, you are going to need a good setting powder. Reason being is that when you use the concealer to clean up your brow, the last thing that you want the concealer to do is crack or crease throughout the day. So you use the setting powder so that it won't happen. The one that I like to use is the translucent setting powder by Laura Mercier. And this costs $39. You can get it at either Ulta or Sephora. If $39 is too much, that's a little pricey, you can also use Makeup Revolution. You can find that at Ulta. I think it's about $7. They have translucent powder as well. And if you don't want to use translucent powder, you can use a colored powder. Some people use banana powder. Some people use a deep powder. You know, it's really preference. I like translucent powder because anybody can use it. Any complexion, any race or ethnicity can use translucent powder. So, you know, again, it's preference, but this is what I prefer, and this is what I'll be using in the video. So let's match these brows. Here, I'm going to take the spoolie and brush my hair in the direction that I want it to go in. I'm brushing towards my outer eye, and I'm trying to brush it up because, as you can see, I do not have full brows, but I do have a technique for that, and I will show you. Well, here I have the Duo Freeze Glue, and I'm going to show you how I can get full brows. I'm going to take the glue and wipe off the excess. Here, I'm just putting a little of the Duo glue in my brow hairs. I know that that's probably intimidating to some people, but it doesn't take your hair out, and it's going to give us the desired effect. Now I'm going to take my spoolie and brush my hairs up. This will give the brows a full effect. If you already have full brows, you will not need to use this technique, and you can skip this part. Here I have the shape that I want for my brows. So now I'm going to take my Dip Brow Pomade and my angle brush, and what I'm going to do is create the shape of the brow that I want. So I'm going to share my tip. What I do with my angle brush is the same Duo glue that I use to put in my brow. I put it in my angle brush and I squeeze the bristles flat. This helps me to achieve hair-like strokes. It makes the brow look more natural, and it mimics hair. So that really works for me. Now I'm going to take the brush and just line the bottom of my brow. You can do short strokes. You don't have to do long strokes. That way, you know, it can have a very clean look and you won't have to do a lot of cleaning up. It's also important to note that when you are getting to the tail end of your brow, you don't want to drag it too far because it makes your brows look cartoony, and that's not what we're going for. So when you get to the tail of your brow, you want to be very careful about how far you drag it out. The tail of your brow should not extend past your eye. So what you see me doing here is creating hair-like strokes in my brow hairs. And the reason that is because after you line up the bottom of your brow, you want to also make sure that you are going between the hairs in your brow to give it a nice full effect. After you have filled in the brows, you want to line the top of your brow as well. As you can see, as I work my way toward the front of my brow, I am not lining the very front of my brow. And the reason why that is because I'm gonna leave that space empty so that I can create hair-like strokes that mimic the hair at the beginning of my eyebrow. So now I have my Toffee LA Girl Pro Concealer. I'm going to put it under my brow to give it a nice clean look. Now you want to grab your Morphe Liner Definer brush, which is the M432 brush. And I just put the product on the back of my hands. I like to leave it there. It warms the product up really nicely and just makes for a smooth application. So here I am using short strokes to apply the concealer under my brow. The slower, the better, because you don't want to undo all of the work that you did to get your brow in the shape that you wanted. Also, it does not take a lot of product to clean under the brow. You just want to take your brush and tap it in the concealer, and then I would tap it a couple times to get any excess off. And then you just want to, take your time. This brush is really good for beginners. So it shouldn't be, that hard. And also, practice makes perfect. After you get the concealer on, you just want to blend it out. So now I'm gonna grab my buffer brush by Morphe. It's the M173 brush. And here I'm gonna talk about why I use two different buffer brushes. So right here, what I'm doing with the buffer brush is I'm just getting rid of the harsh lines. I wanna make it look really smooth and, just kind of like flawless. You don't want to do too much near your brow because you don't wanna brush the product into your brow. Here I'm going to use the darker concealer, the Beautiful Bronze, at the top of my brow. As you can see, it's very close to my complexion. It's going to give my brow a very natural look. Same concept as the bottom of your brow. You want to just take your time and follow the shape of the brow that you created. Right there, I went too high. You can always go back and just, you know, fill it in like I'm doing here. The reason why I use two buffer brushes is because I also want to buff out the top of that eyebrow. And because I use the buffer brush for the lighter color, I don't want a transfer of, you know, the lighter concealer at the top of my eyebrow. So that is why I use two buffer brushes. Again, that is my preference. And you don't necessarily have to do that. So after I put this concealer on, I'm just going to buff it out to give it a more natural look. Time to break out that translucent setting powder, ladies. I'm going to put that on my eyelid to set the concealer and just make sure that I have that clean look under my brow and that the concealer doesn't crease or crack. I'm just rubbing it in here. A little product goes a long way. You don't have to cake it on. And, you know, it gets the job done. And don't forget to set that concealer on top as well. Here's the finished product, ladies. Tell me what you think in the comments below. And if you have any additional questions, just hit me up on IG at Playing in My Palettes. Peace.